Welcome to GP Training. I'm Adam.
And I'm Sophie, and we're chairs of the National GP Training Network at the college.
In this second video, we thought it would be helpful to share some top tips of the essentials in these important first few weeks and months of training.
So tip number 1 is log in early to your e-portfolio on 14 Fish. Do it as soon as possible and try to practice getting a reflection or a learning log recorded within the first few weeks. This way you'll have something to discuss when you first meet your clinical supervisor.
Tip number 2 is that your educational supervisor is the GP that will oversee your training in its entirety, and you'll usually be placed in their practice for your final ST3 year. They should be listed on your e-portfolio, and you should try and make contact with them as soon as possible to introduce yourself and plan to meet them around January for your interim educational supervisors meeting.
Tip number 3 is that during your working week you'll have allocated a half day for meeting with your VTS colleagues. VTS stands for Vocational Training Scheme, and this is a great opportunity to get advice from senior trainees, many of which will have been through the exact same placements as you, and during which time you'll also be given some structured teaching. Colleagues are also an invaluable resource when you start to think about preparing for exams in your ST2 and 3. Many of them will have really helpful advice on how to best prepare for them.
Tip number 4 is that because of COVID, VTS meetings have had to be moved online to a virtual format for the last 18 months. Things may be a bit blended, mixing virtual and face-to-face in approach for your VTS, at least to begin with. It might be daunting starting a training scheme without meeting people face-to-face, but you will be put in touch with your colleagues, and many schemes will have WhatsApp groups and other ways of communicating, so make sure that you seek these out and get to know your colleagues from the beginning.
And the final tip number 5 is to approach your secondary care placements with your future GP hat on. Try and think how best to get the most out of your placement by thinking about what a GP would need to know about that specialty. This involves going to clinics or looking at how GPs refer patients into secondary care, and also considering how secondary care communicates with GPs around them.